All right, so we're going to get started. Sorry it's a little late. You guys got me distracted. But what else is new, right? So for exercise 213, essentially we're doing a complete repeat of everything that we've been doing, but I'm going to extend it past all the way through what you'll need to complete your assignment 202. So you will, at the end of today, theoretically, have a laser cut file ready to go cut. And so that's the plan, at least. So I'm going to walk you through the entire process today, all the way from the very beginning. But I will move a little bit faster through the earlier stages and then take more time in the later stages. So once again, I started out in SketchUp, and I'm going to go to the File menu, and I'm going to go to Geolocation, Add Location. And I'll zoom in on Mount Diablo here. There we go, something like that. I'll say Select Region, and then grab the region. Then I can confirm that it works by going to the File menu, going to Geolocation, and Show Terrain. And that then gives me the piece of terrain there to work with. I'll go ahead and go to File and then Save As. And remember, I have to go back to SketchUp 2013 in order to bring it into Rhino. So I'll bring it back to SketchUp 2013 and put it into today's folder. This is Mount Diablo. And there we go. At this point, I'm going to move over into Rhino. So we'll open this up. I'm going to go to New and Large Object Inches as my template. I want to make sure that the templates match up. I want to make sure that I'm using inches because the file that I'm getting from SketchUp is also going to be in inches, so the units will match, which is important. And there we go. So I have my new Rhino file. Inside of Rhino, I'm going to go to the File menu and say Import. And I'm going to bring in that file that I just saved. And there's Mount Diablo. We'll go ahead and bring that one in. Default options for the SketchUp import are just fine. We'll say OK. And there it is. And zoom out in the perspective view there. And there's that piece of terrain that I brought in. Remember, this is a mesh, not a NURBS surface. So we're going to convert this over into a NURBS surface. Let me clean up my layer structure first just a little bit. We can get rid of the flat plane. We don't need that. This we'll put on a brand new layer called SketchUp. I'll right-click and say Change Object Layer. There we go. All of the rest of these layers can go away. So we'll go ahead and delete all of those. So I have just the SketchUp layer and the default layer for right now. Let's go ahead and view this in shaded mode so that we can see that it is a surface. Yep, there it is. I'm going to create a new layer called Contour X. If I can type, there's Contour X. We'll make that the active layer. And I'm now going to use the contour command to make a bunch of parallel lines that run across this particular surface. So I'll go up to Curve, Curve from Objects, Contour. Alternatively, I could type in Contour and get to the same place. My contour base point needs to be one of the corners. Because I have trouble selecting it, I'm going to turn on my Object Snap and then turn on my Vertex Snap to get to one of the corners. There it is. I want to make sure that I go off in space, not snapping to anything. So I'll turn Ortho on, and we'll go off here in the X direction. It's actually the negative X direction, but it doesn't make any difference. Distance between the contours, I'm going to do it at 100 feet. And I'll go ahead and press Enter. And there that is. I'll deselect everything, and I'm going to repeat the contours, this time on a layer called Contour Y. There's Contour Y. We'll make that the active layer. And again, I'm going to contour the mesh, not the curves. If I contour the curves, I get points. I don't want that. So we're going to stay with the mesh itself, and we'll go up to Curve, Curve from Objects, Contour. Contour base point is going to be that same corner right there. We're going off in the y direction, or I guess the negative y direction. Same thing, 100 feet. And there's my next set of contours. At this point, I can go ahead and turn off my SketchUp mesh, and I'm left with just the curves that are going to represent this surface. From here, I'm going to switch over into the top view. I'll zoom out, and I'm going to trim off the ragged edges. So let me take a few of these curves. And we'll go to trim. And there we go. So I don't have any ragged edges around. That's good. Now I can go ahead and make my curve network out of this. So I'll move back into the perspective view. I'll select all of my curves. And we'll go up to, actually, let me make it a new layer first. And we will call this terrain. I'll make that active. And then I'll go into my surface curve network. Or I could type in network SRF is the command line for it. And if I did this correctly, I'll get A, B, C, and D on the four corners, or on the four sides of this. The default options are just fine, and I'll go ahead and say OK. This does take a few minutes, or it can take a few minutes, so we'll be patient while it's working on it. It frequently looks like it's going to crash, so that's not a problem. While it's there, I'm going to go ahead and flip over and bring up the little cheat sheet that you guys all have in front of you, just so that I have an example of it in front of me. Actually, you know what? Let me open it in Photoshop. Hopefully I still have it on my flash drive from last class. Bear with me for just a second while we get this. Oh, it doesn't look like I saved it. Well, we'll have to look at it not in Photoshop. We'll have to look at it online. So sorry about that. Let's open this back up. Let's go to today's exercise. And apparently, I have to go to, there we go. There's the table. So we'll come back to this table in just a second. Let's see how Rhino is doing for us. Still working. Patience. All right, so it did finish. That's good. Now that it's finished the surface, remember it's going to be super dense, so I'm going to have to rebuild the surface. I will click off so that nothing's selected, and this process takes a while. It's very slow. Then I'll click on the surface itself and wait. It highlights that big block of yellow. At that point, I can type rebuild, or I can go to the edit menu and select rebuild. And I'll wait. By the way, it is faster if you have just one view showing instead of having all four when you try to select it. When I do the rebuild, I'm going to do it at 100 by 100. And I'll go ahead and say OK. Much better. Now I can actually work with the surface itself. I'll turn off my contour X and contour Y. And now I'm left with the surface itself. Let me zoom selected so that it's easy to see. And there it is. So that concluded the first day. That was 211. Now I'm moving on to 212. So 211, I managed to do it in all of 9 minutes and 30 seconds. And that was the first day. So you see how this compresses down. The next day, I can compress that down too, and we'll get to the last day. Like I said, all in all, I think it would probably take me about an hour to go from the SketchUp all the way through laser cutting and having it built. Maybe an hour and a half. So the process gets a lot faster as you work through it. So now I have my terrain. Now I need to go back and double check that little chart that I brought up here. And I needed to select, number one, what the drawing scale is, or what the model scale ultimately is going to be. And last time we did 1 to 250, which worked out okay for the size of our terrain. If you were working on a specific site, you'd probably be down here in the architectural side of things. You could pick one of those scales. The same strategy applies. My guess is we're going to work somewhere for this class between 1 to 500 and 1 to 200. I think almost everybody that I went around and helped last class was at the 1 to 250, the same example that I was working with. So at 1 to 250 scale, if I came over here, if I wanted my model to be 11 inches by 17 inches, I would get a overall size in feet of 4,250 feet by 2,750 feet. So I need to go back to my Rhino model, and I need to draw a rectangle that is at 4,250 feet by 2,750 feet. I'll hit enter to finish, and there's my rectangle. Obviously, that rectangle is hanging over the side of my terrain a little bit, so I want to move it. I will go back into shaded mode so I can kind of see this. Some people like to see it in rendered mode because you can see the terrain a little bit more, and you can kind of discern where you want your rectangle to fall. So let's say it's right about there. At this point, I need my rectangle not to be flat, but to follow along with the surface so that I can use it as a trim. So in the top view here, I'm going to use the project command. So I'll type project, or I'll go up to curve, curve from objects, project, right there. It's going to ask me to select curves. I'll select my rectangle as my curve and press enter. Then it's going to say select surfaces to project onto. There's my surface, and I'll go ahead and hit enter there as well. Once I've done that, it really nicely follows along with my surface there. Perfect. Now I can use that curve as a trim. So I'll go ahead and click on the trim button, type trim, or go to edit trim, and I'll get rid of the rest of that surface. There it is. I'll hit enter to finish. And now the piece of terrain that I have left right here is at 1 to 250 scale, 11 by 17 inches. So I have 17 inches by 11 inches. So that's perfect. That's what I wanted to have happen. And I have the terrain ready. Now I need to think about slicing this terrain up as if it were slices of cardboard. So I need to know what the thickness of my material in the final model is going to be in order to actually create this. So I'll go back to that chart that I had, which is right here. And depending on the material, I'm going to pick one of these columns. For our purposes, the cardboard is a little bit thicker than 1/8 of an inch, so it's 5/32. So I'll come down here and I'll find out what my contour interval is going to be. It's 39.063 feet. And that represents the thickness of the cardboard in my final model. So I'll use that number, 39.063, when I cut this next round of contours. So we'll go ahead and add another layer, and I can call this Contour Z, or I could call it Topo Lines or anything like that. I'll make it active. I'll go up to my Curve menu, Curve from Objects, Contour. Select Objects for Contours. It's that surface. I'll press Enter. Contour Base Point. We'll pick one of the corners. It's no longer snapping to the corners because it's not a mesh, so we can turn on Endpoint Snap instead. I'll start at one of the corners, and I need to go straight up and down. So it's not letting me do it in this view. So I'll move myself over into one of the side views here. And there we go, making sure that I can go straight up and down. There it is, going straight up and down. Now the distance between the contours, this is that value that I got from this chart, 39.063. And so I'll go ahead and type in 39.063 feet, and I'll press Enter. And it will then slice up my piece of terrain quite nicely. And remember, each of those contours is the thickness of the cardboard of the final model. That's how I determined what these contours are going to be. To confirm that they were done correctly, I can look in one of the side views and make sure they're perfectly horizontal lines, which they are. I could also look in this side view and see that they're perfectly horizontal lines. So that's what I'm looking for. At this point, we can turn off the terrain altogether, and we can look at our curves here. So at this point, we were going to draw the steps on the sides. And I showed you there was two different methods for drawing the steps. I will go through both of those methods again today. The first was to install a bunch of points along the edge here. And so to do that, I went into the points, and instead of doing a single point, I'm going to right-click on the button instead of left-click, which is going to let me do multiple points. I should also, by the way, create a new layer for this. Put it down here at the bottom. And let me rename that points. Or let's go side 1. There we go. That's the current layer. I'll go ahead and right-click on the points here so that I can start working on my points all the way up the side. I'll click 1 on each end. I only have end snap turned on. I definitely don't have near snap turned on because that would get me messed up. And I'll work my way along all of the end points like that. And I'll press enter when I'm done. Now conveniently, these are all on a layer, so all I have to do is right-click on the layer and say select objects, and there's all my points. If they weren't, I could use the command selpt for select point and to be able to get those points. That's another way of doing it. And now I need to rotate them to be flat. So I'll use a rotate 3D. I'll go up to transform, rotate 3D, start at the first point in the line here. Again, we'll go off in space. This is going along the x-axis right there. And we'll go from straight up and down and fold it down to the side. At this point, I can go ahead and draw the steps. So I'll start with my Polyline tool. I'll start on the first point. I do need to turn on, by the way, point snap here. There it is. And I'm going to turn on perpendicular. I'll come over and use my smart tracking. I'll hover on the first point, come back until I get perpendicular. Oops. Helps if I actually snap there. Hover, snap back to perpendicular. Hover, snap back to perpendicular. And I'll work my way up this side. When I get to the top of a hill, I go straight across, and then I start working my way back down the other side. So here I get to the bottom of a valley. In that point, I need to go down my distance of my contour, so 39.063 feet. Over and back up. That's the top of a hill. This is now the bottom of the hill, 39.063, or the bottom of a valley. We'll go over, we'll go across, and then we can start our steps going down the other side. All right. Once I'm done, I can select my steps and all the points, and I can rotate 3D back. So I'll go to Transform, Rotate 3D. We'll go off in the X direction again. We'll take from flat and move it up to be vertical. If I did it correctly, all the steps should line up, which they do. And if I looked at this in one of the side views, all of my vertical steps are in fact vertical, which is good. So the alternative method to that, there's nothing wrong with that method, but it can take a little bit of time, is to work with what's called our Seaplane, our drawing plane. And I'm going to adjust the seaplane, so rather than being in the X and Y direction, rather than being flat, I'm going to adjust it so it's vertical along this edge. And I'll do that by clicking on the triangle next to where it says perspective in my viewport. I'll go to Set Seaplane 3 points. Seaplane origin is going to be the first point in this row here. Although I don't know for sure that that's actually in the corner, so it may be this point. So I'll do the second point there. I'm going to make sure that I'm going off into space along axis. There it is. And then I'll switch my view so that I'm going straight up and down, like that. If I did it correctly, I should see my little grid showing up right there. And it should look like it's in plane with what I'm creating, which it is. At that point, I can go ahead and start at this first point and move my way, snapping to perpendicular and creating these stair steps as they go up this side. So this saves the rotation, and you're drawing right in plane with all of your objects. I'm at the top of the hill. I go straight across, and I continue going back down the other side. All right, so I've got that side done. Perfect. I need to switch over to do this side. So I'll go back to my set seaplane. I'm going to go back to world top, which resets it to the original seaplane. And then I'll go to set seaplane 3 points. I'll start at this point this time. We'll go off in space right there along the x-axis this time. And then we need to go vertical. So I'll switch views. I'm going vertical. My little grid shows up right there. I can start right from that point. Start there, and we'll go up and across and then back down. This front side has a lot of undulations in it, so I'm going to be going up and down fairly frequently. Now there will be some times where you guys made a mistake, and so I'm going to deliberately make a mistake here. This should go down the thickness of a contour, but I didn't do it, so I'll go straight across and then keep going. And I'll show you how I would come back and fix that later on. I'm going to go down 39.063 feet. And then we'll go back up this side. Oops. Sorry, I know this gets tedious watching me do it, but I have to do it so that I can get done with this so that we can move on. So 39.063 feet. We'll go across like that, and I'll work my way back up this side. Straight across because I'm at the top of the hill. And I'll end right there. OK, one more side to go. I'm going to do that seaplane one more time. So I'll go back to my triangle. I'll go to Set Seaplane, World Top. I'll go back to my triangle, Set Seaplane 3 points. And we'll go off. There we go. And we'll go up vertical. And then I need to do one more round of stairs. So we'll work our way up this side. almost done. All right. So at this point, I have all the sides complete. But just like you did, I left the ends of the sides, or the corners of the sides, incomplete. So this just got me to the end of last class. So we did the first class in 8 minutes or 9 minutes or whatever it was. This one took a little bit longer, 20 minutes for me to do, a little bit less than that, 15 minutes. So now it's time to move on and continue on from where we left off. So the first thing that I want to talk through right now is how do we make these corners actually work? And the reason I left the corners blank for now was because we need to kind of reconsider what's happening in the corners. So at this example here, this is the last contour on this side. I should go down, over, and back up to that point. Likewise, this should come down and over. I don't know for sure, though, looking at this, that this point is exactly in the corner. It might be, but it might not be. So what I'm going to do as I get closer is I'll start with this, and I'll go down 39.063 feet, because we know I need to go down. And then I'll go off in space. And you can see right there that it doesn't actually match up. It passes by that edge. So if I had gone down and then over, my step would be out of plane. So I just go down and then leave it long. On this side, I'll go down 39.063 feet. Now, I can't draw this direction anymore because my seaplane is over here. So I'll have to use some snaps and see if I can get it to work. There it is. And we'll go back up. And then I'll leave this one long. And I can basically come over and snap to perpendicular. So that's how the corner came together here. But it's going to vary on each corner. So I'll use this as a trim. And I'll trim off that piece there. So this piece and that piece should be joined together. So I'll go ahead and type join. Likewise, this piece and that piece should be joined together. And I'll type join. So that corner was done correctly now. I'll work my way along. And this is also one of the things that I do is I go along and I kind of check to make sure all of my steps look like they match up as I move from one side to the other. OK, so now at this point, from here, we need to go down 39.063 feet. And we need to go off in space that direction. Likewise, from this point, we need to go down 39.063 feet, like that. Now, I'm betting that those actually, on this one, ended up right on top of each other. It happens. So let's see. I'll use a trim and see if I can trim that off. Oops. Sorry. There it is. And that did work that way. So in this case, this curve here ties into that curve. And this curve and that curve tie together. So I'll type join. And I'll work my way along this side. All of that looks pretty good. This goes down and back up. Truth be told, along this, these little tiny curves, these little scoops, are going to get lost and burned up in the laser cutter. So they're not that useful, but I'll leave them for right now. Sometimes if you have ones like that and you want to just skip it and go all the way across, I'm OK with that. If I did, in that context, essentially all I would do is delete this, and then draw a line from here to here, and another line from here to there. And then I need to do some trimming. I'd type trim. I'd get rid of that and that. And then I would take these segments here and join them back together. So that would work out just fine. So if you end up with some really funny little piece along the way, you can feel free to delete it. A piece like this is plenty big enough to glue in. OK, so let me adjust this corner now. So we'll come back. I'll go down by 39.063 feet. There it is. And I can't seem to go off from here because my seaplane isn't in the correct direction anymore. So we'll just leave it. I'll come back to this one and go down 39.063 feet. And now I'll go off with that point. This then would connect perpendicular to there, I could go from this corner down 39.063 feet and snap to that point there. So there's that corner. I'll go ahead and type trim. Oops, sorry. Let's try trim one more time. Trim, there we go. And now I need to join these up. So I'll hold down Shift, select those, and then edit join, or I can type join. Same thing, this piece and that need to join together as well. So this, I'm checking along the way. That all looks pretty good. I get to my last corner here. And so I could start right here. This would go down 39.063 feet. But I can't go off in this direction just yet, so I'll just finish it there. I'll start at this point and go down 39.063 feet. And this one I can go off in that direction. And now that I have that curve, I can snap from this perpendicular to there to create that piece of the curve. We'll use this as a trim for that corner there. This joins to this. This and that join together as well. So as I was creating this, I told you I was going to make a mistake on purpose. I didn't go down here. I went straight across. So this is one of those places where I'm going to have to fix it. So once again, I could go to my Polyline tool. I'll go down 39.063 feet. I can't go over just yet, so I'll finish the command and press enter. I'll go back to my Polyline tool, and I'll go down once again 39.063 feet. And now I could snap those two pieces together. I could even join those pieces together. Join. I could use this as a trim to trim that piece out. And then I could select this piece and join those back together. Sometimes you have a piece where you kind of messed up a little bit. Trying to help you guys solve problems. Sometimes you have something like that happened. I made a mistake, but it's all joined together. How do I fix it? So in that case, the strategy would be to explode. So I can go up to Edit, Explode, or just type Explode. Deselect, I'll hold down Control, deselect that piece while everything else is still selected. While they're all still selected, go back and join. Go to Edit, and then Join. That then keeps this and this still connected together, but gives you access to that one piece, which you can then delete. I can then go through and fix that problem there and join those back together. So the strategy there was just to explode and then select the piece that you don't want, delete that piece. OK, so now I have all the sides all the way around my object. At this point, I have to make these sides into pieces that can be cut out on the laser cutter. And so I'm going to construct the sides. And I'll start with this side here. Basically, a piece of cardboard that goes down further than whatever my lowest point would be. So let me start right here with my pen tool. I'm still in Illustrator from earlier today. Let me start right here with my Polyline tool. And I'll start on that corner. I need to go down, and I just need to make sure that I'm lower than whatever the lowest point is. So my lowest point is right there. I just need to make sure that I'm below that lowest point. And it doesn't matter how far down it is. We'll put it down there. That's fine. Now I can come across, and I just leave it long. Then I can come to the other end, right there. I can go down and snap to perpendicular to create this side. I can then use a trim and get rid of that. So that piece plus this piece all end up being one side. So let me go ahead and join those together. There's my first side. I'm going to repeat the process on this side. I'll go back to my Polyline tool. I'll come down, match up with the bottom. And so in this case, I can't draw this way. So before I did it, I really should have reset my Seaplane. Let me go back to set Seaplane, world top. And so I can come down and snap to that point. I can go off in this direction, longer than my model. Snap from here down perpendicular. Use that as a trim. And there we go. Those two plus this piece become that side. We'll do this side now. Once again, I'll start with my polyline. I'll start here. I'll come down to that point. We'll make it a little long. I'll start at this corner, come down and meet it perpendicular. And we will trim that piece off. Then I'll go ahead and select Shift. I'll hold down Shift, select all of those, and type Join. So notice each one of these is a joined polyline, each side. So last side, right over here, we'll go down, snap. We'll go to right there, snap. And we'll come right back up to there, like that. This plus this joined becomes that side of my model. So now that I have those sides of my model, it's time to do a rotate 3D and fold them down flat. So on each side, I'm going to go to my transform, rotate 3D. My axis of rotation is going to be this bottom, and we're going to fold that one flat. The important thing here is that all of them have to fold the same direction. I either fold them all out or I fold them all in, but they all have to be the same. So we'll go ahead and fold this one out. And we'll move over and we'll fold this one out. And then we'll fold the last one out here. So this is just repeat of the rotate 3D command every time. All right. So these pieces now represent the sides of my model, the stepping sides of my model. So that's good. I have those pieces. Unfortunately, these curves here are still all moved up and down in the z direction. I need a flat version so I can cut them out. So we've done this before. I'm going to create a new layer just so that I don't get these confused. And we'll call this projected. Oops. I'll call them projected topo lines. We'll make that active. We're going to move into the top view so we can look down on our object. Those are all the lines. I actually don't need the points anymore. SELPT to get rid of the points. And then I'll press the delete key. OK, so on this projected, I need a surface that is larger than my terrain. There it is. I'm going to do this in wireframe right now. And then I need to select all of those curves. There they are. I need to project. Select surfaces to project onto. That big surface there. I'll hit Enter. And remember, I did all of that in the top view. And now I have a perfectly flat set of curves. So at this point, I can turn off my side one. I can turn off my contour Z. There we go. And I can go ahead and I can delete this plane. So I'm left with the sides and all of the contours nice and flat. So it's time to start prepping the laser cut file to actually be able to go over and cut these guys out. So I'm going to switch now from the perspective view into the top view because I don't need stuff in 3D anymore. And at this point, you kind of have a choice. You can keep working at full scale, or you can actually scale it down to be the size that you're going to be cutting long term. You will have to scale it eventually. And for me, I like to go ahead and get it down to the size that I will be laser cutting at this point. It's optional, though. You can do it later on if you want to. You just have to do a little more math in your head. So I'm going to go ahead and take all of this. I'm going to scale it. And I'm going to snap along one of these sides. So I'll go from here to there. And so I know that that distance is going to ultimately be 17 inches. So I can just type in 17 inches and press enter, and everything disappears. And you go, oh no! No, you didn't. You just went from 4,000 feet to 17 inches. So your computer's not showing that. So you type Z. I haven't deselected anything. I type Z for zoom, followed by S for selected, and there it is. It's just now 17 inches, not 4,000 feet. OK, so now we can start setting this up for laser cutting. So let me go ahead and give myself a couple laser bed sizes. So I'll say this one is at 24 inches, 12 inches. That would be the laser cutter bed. I'll go ahead and copy this 2 more times. It may take you 3 or 4 times on the laser, 3 or 4 beds to lay these out. The first one, for example, I could move these pieces up. So that I could cut those out. I can move this piece and I can rotate this piece as long as I don't flip the piece. So I can go ahead and rotate so that it actually fits. And I can move that there as well. So there's no harm in rotating. Just make sure you don't flip. That's key. So those pieces are going to be OK. At this point, I probably need a layer called laser cut. And let's put it down at the bottom here. There's the laser cut layer. I'll make a sublayer for cut and a sublayer for engrave. The cut layer is going to be red in color, so I'll click the black square next to cut and change it to be red. The good news about Rhino is this is the actual red that you need to laser cut, so you don't have to make any changes later on as long as you pick the one that says red. My engrave is blue. I'll click the black square and choose the one that says blue and say OK. So each of these pieces is going to be cut out. So I can take all of them and I can put them on the cut layer. So I'll right click and say change object layer. They should now be all red. In terms of laser cutting, most of you have all laser cut before, so I'm not overly worried. You guys kind of know the process. Stay away from the very edges. Don't put your objects right on the very edges. It's going to be problematic when you go to cut it out. So make sure that there's a little bit of a border around the objects. OK, so now we get to the topo lines. If I took all of these topo lines and I cut them out one by one, they wouldn't stack on top of each other anymore, correct? So what I need to do is I need to take this, and the first time I need to do every other line. Then I'm going to make a second copy of it and do the opposite. So I'll start with whatever the lowest point is. This can be a little tricky. So let me move this first up onto one of these laser beds, like that. And I'm going to start where I think a low point would be. We can start with this. I'll take this first one, I'll hold down Control, and I'm going to, or excuse me, Shift, and I'm going to skip to every other line as I'm making my selection. And I'll work my way up the hill. OK, so I got to that point. Now over here, this is going down, so I need to select every other curve like that. We'll come here, and we'll keep going there. That's good. OK, so on mine, there's a few tricky ones. I've got this circle that's floating there. It could be on either layer. I just have to be consistent. Oops. Sorry, I'm thinking I'm in Illustrator. I press spacebar to move. OK, then up here, we've got this curve here, and then we've got another little bitty curve. This one here could belong to either side. This curve here and this curve here might be the same curve, or they might not be. This could connect to that curve, in which case this should be selected and that shouldn't be selected. So it's a little awkward as you look through. Sometimes you'll have to go back and reference your original surface where your sides are to see whether it's going up or going down. So in that case, I could come over here, this side here. I show a little peak right there. So this and this do match up. So I corrected myself there. Do you guys see that? Where it goes up? That means those two curves are the same ones, there and there. Likewise, on this side, the one in the middle, this is the same height. Right there going across. So this one should be selected there as well. So sometimes you just have to look at the sides and make sure they match up correctly. Now that I've done that, I could also double check this one here. Yep, it's that right there, so they should be the same. OK, perfect. So I have all of those selected. I can take those and put them on the cut layer. So I'll right-click and say Change Object Layer. They're all on the cut layer. The opposite set, all of these, should be on the Engrave layer or the blue layer. So I'll take these that are currently black. Oops, sorry about that. And I will change all of those objects to be on the Engrave layer. So we'll go to Change Object Layer. So I end up with this. I do want to check that little piece right there. Yep, it is. It's the same as this one. OK, good. So this first copy, I do need a rectangle that goes all the way around the outside. So I can use my smart tracking to get the actual corner. There it is. Once again, I'll use my smart tracking on this corner. There's the corner. That going all the way around the outside should be a cut, like that. So I have one set. Now I need the same thing, but opposite colors. Because what I'll end up doing when I make the physical model is I'll have both of them side by side, and I'm going to alternate. I'll pick one piece from the first stack, and I'll pick one from the second stack, and I'll put them together. It's like shuffling a deck of cards, where you have two sides and you're putting them together. That's how you get the space to glue them. And I'll bring the models back so you can kind of see it, and I'll also do a demo of it for you as well. So I'll take this whole thing, I'll go to Edit, Copy, and I'll come up here and I'll go to Edit, Paste. Excuse me, I shouldn't have done that. I should have gone to Transform, Copy. There we go. My mistake. Like that. All right, now I need this one to be the exact opposite. So I'll select all of, let me select all the reds. And I could make my life a little bit easier if I just right-clicked on, say, the Engrave layer, say Select Objects. It'll select them all. Then I can hold down Control and deselect over here, which selects all of those. Those are going to need to move. But I need them to go somewhere else first because I need to be able to distinguish which one's which. So I'll just put them up on the laser cut layer. I'll say Change Object Layer. Then I can select all of the cut layer. Select objects. There they are, except for this. And I can put them onto the Engrave layer. So I'll right-click and say Change Object Layer.
Your other part of it.
Thank you. Control, deselect. Thank you. And I'll right-click and I'll say Change Object Layer. Now those are all there. I can go back and select my laser cut layer, which are just these, and we can move them back down onto the cut layer. Change Object Layer. So these are the exact opposite. So if I look for something on this lower one, there it is, it's red. If I come up here, it should be blue. If I look for this piece here, it's red. I come back over here, it should be blue. I'm a little confused why I keep getting doubles. I think I might have accidentally given myself doubles. Yeah, I did. So let me, I don't need doubles. If I did that, it would give me doubles on the laser cutter. It would run each cut twice. Don't want that. So we'll do this whole process of changing it one more time. It's not that bad. So I'll select the whole thing, copy, There it is. Let me select the cut layers, select objects. I'm going to deselect there, deselect there, and deselect the border. We'll put that temporarily on the laser cut layer, change object layer. Then I can select the engrave layer, select objects, deselect those. These ones are going to move on to the cut layer, change object layer. I can come back and select my laser cut, select objects, and those are going to be moving down to the engrave layer, change object layer, and now they're in the engrave layer. So once again, if I compare, I've got this circle and that circle, and they're opposite each other. That's the important thing. So at this point, I have the files almost ready to cut out. The last piece is that there is a thickness to the cardboard. And so these sides here have some thickness. So unless I miter the corners, one side's going to be a little bit too big. So I might as well take that off of one of the sides. So I'm going to pick the two long sides, there, and I'm going to take off 5/32 of an inch from either side. If you forget to do it, you can do it afterward with a knife. It is possible to actually cut with a knife. I know that's a novel concept, but yes, you can take an X-Acto knife and modify this. Actually, the truth is when you put it together, you're going to have to modify it a little bit anyway. So let me start at this corner. I'm going to move myself over by 5/32 of an inch. I'm not using that 39.063 anymore because it's now down to the small scale, so it's 5/32 of an inch. We'll snap perpendicular there. Same thing, we'll go from here over 5/32, and we'll snap to there. We'll move to the other end, and we'll go over 5/32 of an inch, and we'll go up to there. And we'll start there, and we'll go over 5/32 of an inch, and we'll go to right there. Now I recognize I'm cutting off some little steps. The truth is that those little steps aren't going to matter anyway because it's too small of a little piece to worry about. So we'll go ahead and trim. Let me take these pieces here, these pieces right there, and we'll trim. I'll trim off there and there. I'll trim off there and there. I'll hit enter to finish, and then I can join these back together. So I'll join, and I will join. And there we go. So the end result is that I have all the pieces necessary to actually build one of these physical models. And that's the important thing to get through today, is I want you to get ready. If you do make it today and you get the AutoCAD file, you're essentially ready with your AutoCAD file to turn in as the digital file part of this assignment. And I'd have to double check on when that part is due. But it is due before the main part, the Halloween, when the whole actual object is due. So now that I have these two pieces ready, I need to make an AutoCAD file out of them. I will select them. I will go to the Edit menu, or excuse me, I will go to the File menu, and I will go to Export Selected. And from here, I don't want an AutoCAD, or I don't want a Rhino file anymore. I want an AutoCAD DWG. Let me go into my flash drive and choose where to save it. Sorry, wrong class. All right, so this is going to be my laser cut. And this is the fall of 2018. I can click on Options here. My export scheme, I'm going to use 2004 lines. And I'll go ahead and say OK. Then I'll click Save. 2004 lines, I'll confirm that and say OK. It's now made the AutoCAD file for me. That file is what I'm going to need to bring over to the laser cutter to do the actual cutting. Has anybody in this class never done laser cutting before? It's OK if you haven't. But if you have, then I'm going to assume you know how the laser cutter works and that sort of thing. There should be a lab tech, I hope, this semester that can help you with it. If there's not, then partner up with somebody who actually knows what they're doing. That's a good strategy. If that doesn't work, find me during office hours and I'll help you do it. That'll work. OK, so now that I have that, a couple other quick things about the AutoCAD file. There is one thing that you absolutely do have to do in AutoCAD, unfortunately. You can do it over there right before you cut. You can do it ahead of time. Obviously, it's better if you do it ahead of time because then you're absolutely ready to cut. But let me go open that file that I just saved. There it is. I'll double click to open it up in AutoCAD, and hopefully AutoCAD will actually open. I know they've had issues with it this semester, so fingers crossed that it opens. This, by the way, pops up every time you have a Rhino export because it says the AutoCAD file was created not in AutoCAD. You say, yeah, okay, whatever. All right, so there I am. The only thing I have to do is I have to go into my layer properties, and I have to adjust the line weights to not be default. So I'll click on each line weight and make it 0.00. This is what the laser cutter requires, 0.00, and I'll just go through all of my layers and make them 0.00. So I just clicked on the Layer Properties button right here at the top and then changed all of my line weights to be 0.00. I can't do that in Rhino ahead of time. So you have to do it in AutoCAD. At that point, I'll save it. I don't know whether the laser cutter computers have 2019. There may be a version issue. I haven't checked if the laser cutter has 2019 AutoCAD on it. Just be aware you might have to do a save as a 2017 or whatever the version is over there. Like I said, I haven't checked it yet. But when I go do this as a test, I'll confirm that it works. So at that point, I'm done. And I have my file ready, and we'll put it together. I will do a live demo for you where I'll actually put it together or show you how to put it together and talk you through that. There is, however, if you're so anxious that you want to get started before I do that demo, on the course website, under tutorials, under, where is it? It's under Physical Modeling Topo 6.1. This walks through a lot of the stuff that I'm talking about. At the very end, there's me several years ago putting this together. It's actually kind of entertaining because halfway through the glue bottle explodes on me, but it is what it is. And so you can see me actually put it together if you're anxious and want to see it before I do the demo for you. So I just wanted to point that out, that it is there should you need it. The other thing is, if you get lost on any of the steps, we have lots of practice for you to see there as well. In terms of today, all I'm really looking for is I'm looking for this in a screen capture. So go to your little triangle in the top view, go to Capture to File, give yourself this, give it a name as a JPEG. You can use that as what you post on the course website. Okay? Are there any questions about it? I know it was a lot to take in. I know I talked for a long time today, but I tried to get the whole thing in so you can see the whole process. Okay? All right, I'll be around to help you if you have any questions. I do also have grade sheets for you all, so I'll come around and pass those grade sheets out as well so you have your current grades.